So thank you for coming today. My name is Alexa Barron, and I am the Senior Product Manager for Thin Clients and Windows Embedded Standard at Microsoft. And I report to a group called Windows Embedded. As you know, this is about thin clients, so if you are looking for something else, you're going to learn about thin clients today. So thanks for coming. So to get started, my goal here is that you're going to be able to articulate Microsoft's position on thin clients. Additionally, you're going to understand what we offer. Many of you are probably familiar with a couple offerings, but we really do have a lot of different products available to you. And I'm also going to touch briefly on Windows Thin PC, which many of you may have heard of. There is a track today for Windows Thin PC specifically, and so I will direct you to that as well. But in general, it's tomorrow, I'm sorry. But in general, a key takeaway is that we have a lot of products available to you to fulfill whatever thin client needs that you have or your enterprise has. So this is going to help you think about the way you should think about thin clients and Microsoft. So many of you may be aware of whoever works in IT admin specifically, the asks you're getting from your companies around thin clients. Maybe you're seeing a lot more questions than you've had before. Now, there are a number of reasons for that. First of all, with the growth of VDI seats, virtualized desktop infrastructure, and the virtualization of desktops, a lot of companies are seeing that they don't necessarily always need a traditional PC. So they're looking towards thin clients as far as an access device for those virtualized desktops. Additionally, there's new technology like Remote Effects, which hopefully we'll be able to demo for you today, that is sparking some interest in thin clients. And there's also a lot of new form factors. So you'll see these all-in-one thin clients as opposed to just the traditional form factors that you're used to seeing. So what is a thin client? This is a question that comes up, and a lot of people have different definitions. So I'm just going to tell you how we are looking at thin clients at Microsoft. First of all, we look at the intent. We view a thin client as something that is designed to always be connected to a server-based desktop. So we are talking about a device that is not running many local applications, and again, always connected. As far as the device itself, it typically has a smaller CPU and RAM than a PC. Typically, it'll use less energy, so we view this as a sort of green option from the hardware standpoint. And it certainly has very little, if any, local data storage. And then as far as an operating system, typically a thin client will run a lightweight operating system, something like Windows Embedded, what we offer. And occasionally you'll see this new growth of zero clients, so no operating system at all. That's pretty much just a connection to your VDI. Some examples of thin clients that you're all probably very familiar with come from our OEM partners like Weiss, HP, iGel. But for the most part, there's a lot of opportunities out there today to get a thin client that really fits what you need. And in order to understand that a little bit more, I'm going to dig into the options we have at Microsoft specifically. So when you look at a thin client, you typically ask yourself one question first. Do I have server-based computing? So whether that's VDI, session virtualization, or something else, you're probably looking at thin client options. So if you are looking at hybrid SBD scenarios, we're going to direct you to go to a PC, because in that case, you're looking for local desktop applications and a local experience that's purely going to be found on a rich client. However, as I mentioned before, we also, talk about unmanaged devices like tablets and iPads. That there are obviously opportunities and technologies for you to look at those as thin clients. But today we're going to talk to you specifically around these pure SBD scenarios that I had mentioned before. So we're talking about no local desktop functionality, remoting in, no local apps or data. Again, this is purely SBD. And then as far as the opportunity here, you do have thin clients as well as Windows PC as an option. So make sure when you're looking for what's right for your company, you understand the differences between those offerings. which I'm going to touch on. So how do you make that decision? How do you know what the right architecture is for your business? So the first thing is to identify the right scenarios for your server-based desktop. So whether you want to have your applications locally or you are using virtualization, that's going to come into play as far as your choice. Luckily, we have options for all of these things. So if you are running VDI or session virtualization and you're evaluating thin clients, so this is for people who are new to thin clients, for example, you're unsure if you want to make the investment in your entire enterprise on new hardware, we do have a product for you. And this is kind of a try before you buy situation. And this is Windows Thin PC. Many of you are probably aware of its former name, which is WinFlip. This allows you to experience a thin client without purchasing. And you repurpose your hardware. So you will install Windows Thin PC on your current PCs, and it'll give you a thin client that you could actually repurpose back to PCs if you decide that that's something you'd want to do. For those customers who know they want a thin client, we have the Windows Embedded Standard and Windows Embedded Compact platforms available for you that offer a lot of variety as far as what you can purchase. So I'll go into this in more detail, but we have full offerings available to you as Windows Embedded Standard, as well as a really small footprint, lightweight offering through Windows Embedded Compact. And the great thing here is that if you start with Windows Thin PC, for example, and decide then that you do want a thin client, you certainly have the experience of working with Windows in a thin client scenario, so it would be a really simple transition for you and your business. So now I'm going to touch on Windows Embedded. Just from a show of hands, is anyone here familiar with Windows Embedded? Oh, wow, that's great. Okay. So some of this may be old news for many of you. So this is how we view thin clients for Windows Embedded. This is a general roadmap. We look at the market as we have high-end thin clients, and then we have lower-end thin clients, both for the local experience and then a remote-only experience. So Windows Embedded Standard 7, we have 2 SKUs, and this is a componentized version of Windows 7. So what that means is our OEM partners can go and build very specific images for thin clients, so there's some personalization in there. And then they would sell the thin client depending on your needs. Then we also have a new product, Windows Embedded Compact 7, that launched in March. Windows Embedded Compact 7P allows for a local experience. So there's a local browser and a local media player. But it's on Windows Embedded Compact, which is a much smaller footprint device. And it is, as far as manageability, a lot of our customers actually don't touch them once they're deployed. So it's fairly easy to manage. And then we also have a new product coming called Windows Embedded Compact 7T. T does not actually stand for anything, but you can, in your mind, think it stands for thin client. And this is a remote-only experience. So consider a zero client. However, this offers remote effects out of the box. Additionally, it has some enterprise security features like Kerberos and Cred SSP that are already built in. So it makes it easy, again, to plug and play for your enterprise. So just to give you an idea as far as scenarios, that's a question I often get from enterprises is, what do you recommend for my scenario? When I'm talking about my user, the end user, you obviously want them to be happy. So if you're offering a low-end thin client to a bank trader at a place like Goldman Sachs, you're probably going to be the first to hear about it. And I know that audience, they're very difficult. So as far as something, what we call a knowledge worker, this would be someone like a bank trader. So these are people who want a personalized desktop. They want to have a very local-like experience, and they want to be able to view rich graphics. Oftentimes, there will be training videos, for example, from corp or headquarters, and they want to be able to run those just like they would on a PC. But obviously, for a bank situation, Security is really important. So we're seeing a lot of server-based computing and virtualized desktop infrastructure being deployed in these environments. So in that situation, we would recommend our Windows Embedded Standard 7 operating system. As far as something deskless workers, this is another group of folks that we see often look at thin clients. These people tend to run limited applications. They tend to work on very specific tasks. And additionally, they still want some sort of local browser. That may be to access applications or just because it gives them more of a local or a PC-like experience. But additionally, because of this work environment, you don't want thin clients that are too expensive. So when we think of this user, it's someone like a nurse on a nursing station. Sometimes these will be people who are working on a manufacturing floor, for example. So there's a lot of moving parts. You don't want to have a really expensive, nice device on the floor. For that, we recommend that Windows Embedded Compact 7P, which is the product that we have low footprint but still has a local browser. And then a third scenario we commonly see is for task workers. So these people do not necessarily need a personalized experience. There is no local storage. They're likely accessing one application. So call centers, for example, these are oftentimes the folks that are pretty happy with just a remote-in experience thin client, and that would be our Windows Embedded Compact 7T. These guys are laughing at our naming. So I've been talking about what products we offer, and you're probably wondering what's included. So for Windows Embedded Standard, as I mentioned, this is a componentized version of Windows 7. So all the goodness you're used to in Windows 7 is included in Windows Embedded Standard. But obviously, this is a smaller footprint, and as far as the OEMs, when they're building these images, they're not going to include everything because you don't necessarily need it. But there are some key features here that I do want to discuss. Multi-touch is one of them, especially as OEMs are looking to build new thin clients that have touch enabled. Direct access and branch cache are great features from Windows 7. Those require Windows Server 2008 R2. So if you already have that infrastructure built in, it's great to be able to take advantage of that. Additionally, BitLocker, AppLocker, which I'm sure everyone's fairly familiar with at this point in time. And we've also included Remote Desktop Protocol 7.1 with Windows Embedded Standard 7 Service Pack 1. So that means that you can run your remote effects sessions, multimedia redirection, USB redirection. All of that goodness from RDP 7.1 will also work with your Windows Embedded Standard thin clients. I keep mentioning Windows Embedded Compact 7. Again, this was a product that we released in March. And this is the smaller footprint I mentioned that it can run on ARM, MIPS, and x86 architecture. So it really gives some flexibility as far as the thin client. Typically, it'll be on a lower cost thin client. And as I mentioned, we have two products here, one for a local experience and one for a remote-only experience. But the good news is you do have a local browser and a media player for that more local experience type of thin client. And then we have Remote Effects as the feature from RDP 7.1 that we've ported to Compact 7. And we're going to actually have a demo of Remote Effects shortly so you can see how that works if you have not seen it yet. Who here has actually seen Remote Effects? Other than the guys in front. Oh, great. OK. So in a moment, I'm actually going to bring Olivier up to talk about it. Remote Effects, what it does for the most part is it takes everything on the server and it runs it on your device, your thin client in this case, almost like it's local. So in the past, if you've tried to run a video on a low-end thin client, it's a pretty awful experience. I mean, it'll stop and it'll go. It'll miss half of the video. So what Microsoft has done is they bought a company called Callista, and they've added this to Windows 7, Windows Embedded Standard 7, SP1, and Server 2008 R2. Now, enabling this is a virtual graphics processing unit. We also have the host side rendering, which means that the work is being done on the server side. So again, you're taking advantage of the server power, and then locally it looks like it's happening on your PC, but all the work's being done on the server side. So that's also playing a role in the growth of thin clients, especially on the low end, because you're able to use a low-cost device and run these really rich graphics. And so I'm actually going to have Olivier come up and illustrate this.
Thanks, Alexa.
Oh.
So hopefully you have, microphone's on. Hi, everyone. I'm Olivier Bloch, Technical Evangelist in the Windows Embed Group. So for those who came to the previous session, this demo will work, I can assure you. So if we can switch, which screen is that? Let's see. We're going to switch onto that West 7-based thin client device from Wyse. So it's running a custom image of Windows Embedded Standard 7 and does support RemoteFX. The first thing I want to show you is what happens without RemoteFX enabled. So I've got an Hyper-V server down here, trying not to walk on, with a Windows 7 VM that I'm going to connect to. There's been some setup going on in order to enable RemoteFX on the Hyper-V server, on the client side, and on the thin client side too. I won't go through in details. It's really well documented, so you can definitely just go onto the MSDN website and get some information from there. So in order to deactivate RemoteFX so that you can see the experience without it, I'm just setting up the experience for lower bandwidth. I will enter my password and connect to that remote session. And in there, what you will see is a limited Windows experience where Aero is deactivated, where multimedia playback is kind of choppy and not really good. So let me show you what you can do today. Let me try and play this video here. It's kind of slow to start. It's actually surprisingly good. It's still not the right experience that you want. So let me show you with RemoteFX. So let me try another video that's more challenging. This one seems to be too easy. Let me try a 1080p. So the Final Pilot one, I think is. Let's try that one. That's still good. Still too good.
In reality, it's just because West 7 is a great option.
West 7 is a good one. Yes, definitely. However, this one might be challenging, right? That's still good. Bummer. So RemoteFX must not be deactivated here. Whatever. So let me just go to, today demos got not nice with me. I don't know why. I've done something bad, I don't know. So let me go there and set up the LAN. You could eventually go and deactivate RemoteFX into the general policies and so on. I won't do that because it's kind of a long process. So let me just restart with full experience here, and you will see Aero that actually has been activated, and they can use the full Windows experience. And there's something else which is interesting, which is the USB redirection that I'm going to try and show you. Redirecting a USB webcam that is connected on the thin client here onto the VM. So first thing, as you can see, Aero is here. You can leverage the full experience for it. Switching from Windows, etc., etc. Obviously here the video will be excellent. There you go. Really nice experience. And as a matter of fact, I do have a hardware that has been connected, which is here. And you can see in the room, it's connected to my thin client here. And I'll be able to access the hardware from an application in the VM, and the hardware is connected to the thin client. So the signal is actually redirected from the hardware, the thin client hardware, and is sent back to the VM, where the VM actually sees a USB webcam and actually can do more because it can see which webcam it is, it can mount the right driver, and then leverage the specific tools they can have, like LiveCam or something like that. So this was about RemoteFX, short demo, and I will give it back to you, Alexa.
Thanks, Olivier. Okay. So, yeah, nice job, Olivier. So now that I've talked about Windows Embedded Standard and Windows Embedded Compact, I want to touch on Windows Thin PC. Windows Thin PC is a new offering that is coming. Again, it's the next generation of WinFlip, which is Windows fundamentals for legacy PCs. Windows Thin PC is a software assurance benefit. So it's available to all of our customers and enterprises who have SA right now. One of the advantages is that you do not need to buy a virtualized desktop access license. So that means that VDI is included. In circumstances where you don't have software assurance, there is a license for VDI. Now, it does give you a great thin client experience. So it has remote effects support, like you just saw. Additionally, it has write filters, which are part of Windows Embedded Standard. And it's a smaller footprint than your full PC. Additionally, it's from the Windows 7 platform, so once again, you're already familiar with it, and it has that interoperability with your current backend. It has System Center support, and again, it's included as an SA benefit. So if you want to try out thin clients, you're not yet ready to purchase them for your organization, that this is a really great option for those customers who have SA. And I just want to make a plug for Nikhil's session tomorrow. It's VERT 212, how to reduce VDI costs with Windows Thin PC, and he's serving alcohol. No, he's not really, but it would help get people there. So a lot of questions come up. What is the difference between Windows Embedded Standard 7 and Windows Thin PC? Windows Embedded Standard 7 is a componentized version of Windows 7. And this is sold to OEMs so that they can build devices. Additionally, it's customized because obviously it's componentized. And it's used mostly for thin clients on new hardware. So again, you want to buy new hardware. You would look for a product from Weiss or HP or iGel or a number of our partners that has Windows Embedded Standard 7. Windows Thin PC is a lockdown version of Windows 7. So you cannot go in as an enterprise and change things or remold it to your purposes. It's a lockdown version, and it's to, again, repurpose your current hardware. So you cannot go in and buy thin clients and then install Windows Thin PC. It doesn't really make sense anyway, but we've had the request. So you cannot do that. But it is a terrific offering for customers with software assurance. And again, used to repurpose your PC. If you want to bring it back to a rich client, you have that opportunity. Or you can then move and purchase thin clients. And Nikhil will dig deeper into that during his session tomorrow. So another question that has come up often is, how do you manage a thin client? So currently, for those of you who have managed thin clients, you'll see a couple issues come up. First of all, you'll have Config Manager, and you'll see devices come up as likely either PCs or phones. Well, a thin client is neither of those. So then it becomes a huge pain for you to manage thin clients. Additionally, with Windows Embedded Thin Clients, while they work with Config Manager 2007, when OEM is building out an image, they may not have brought in all the dependencies needed for Config Manager. So in that scenario, Config Manager is not going to work perfectly, which again can be frustrating for the admins who are trying to go in there and properly manage those devices. And a great feature we have in WES is embedded write filters. However, it prevents unauthorized changes on the embedded devices, so that's a good thing, but you cannot remotely update or manage Config Manager 07. So you have the choice of not using the embedded write filters, but for the most part what happens is the IT admin has to go in and deal with each of the individual devices and make these updates, and that's really time-consuming and frustrating. So in an effort to mitigate these issues, we came up with Windows Embedded Device Manager 2011. This extends the capabilities of System Center 2007 so you can fully manage your embedded devices. Now today I'm talking about thin clients, but this also works for your PAWS devices built on PAWS Ready. So if some of you are working with those as well, this tool works for that as well. And additionally, it just really allows you to update your Thin clients on both Wes and Windows and PC. So this is something that works for both of those. And it makes your job a lot easier so you don't have to do these manual updates all the time. So just to dig a little bit deeper into these features and benefits, again, as I mentioned, it gives you the ease of management. So this will be similar to how you manage your PCs, and you'll be able to distribute software and updates from a remotely. So you won't, again, have to go in and do anything manually. You're taking advantage of technology you're already used to with Config Manager 2007, and now you're able to use it with your embedded devices. Additionally, you have obviously some additional insight and control coming from this. So you are able to simplify and streamline the administrative process, compliance, things like that. And that greater device integration that I mentioned. So you can use Thin clients, pause devices, and work to update these from remote place, regardless of that image, or regardless of the device, rather. So if it is Windows Embedded, working with Windows Embedded Device Manager, they'll appear on the collection, so you'll be able to notice if it's a Thin client or a pause device instead of those appearing as phones or PCs. So some questions that likely are coming up is, how do I get it? So this is similar licensing model as Configuration Manager 2007 for those of you that are familiar with that. So you'll have a Windows Embedded Device Manager client license. You'll have a Device Manager server license, or you'll have the Device Manager server with SQL. And so you have something for both the server and the client device. Additionally, I know this has gone pretty quickly, but I wanted to plug some of our additional breakout sessions. So if you get a chance to check these out, you can get a deeper dive into the Windows Embedded Device Manager. We have the connected media devices powered by Windows Embedded, so that'll additionally show you how connected media devices work with Windows Embedded Standard. We have a couple hands-on labs, and we also have some certification exams. So we have some additional track resources, but that's actually everything from me. Happy to take questions now, and I hope you found this helpful and informative. It gave you some more information around Thin clients as well as Windows Embedded. Thank you. Sure. Yes.
So kind of question and answer in the same thing here. So the Windows Embedded Compact
Yes.
is a full RDP 7.1 client?
It's not full RDP 7.1. It's only Remote FX. So RDP 7.1 is multimedia redirection, USB redirection, Remote FX.
Okay.
For Compact 7, it's Remote FX.
Okay, and it's still based on Windows 7?
No. So Windows Embedded Compact is a separate operating system. So if you were familiar with Windows CE 6.0, this is the newest version of that. So it's Windows Embedded Compact.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Hi. For the management part, will these Windows Embedded device management be the part of the next version of SCCM, means SCCM 2012?
It will not.
If I operate SCCM 2012, I still have to buy the device management 2011 software.
We actually don't have the we don't have that plan yet.
Will that be in the focus?
In the focus?
Oh,
as far as planning? You know, I don't have insight into that right now, but I'm happy to take down your information, and I can certainly get back to you once we do have that readily available information.
Okay.
If you license through Wise, you get a copy discounted through them. Gia is separate.
Well, we do separate from Device Manager.
I'm saying like I think you were asking about the embedded device manager. They're saying like we purchased a bunch of Thin clients through Wise.
Okay.
And they licensed the actual device managing software for us at a discounted price that actually cheaper than you guys. Right? So that was.
I I want to avoid to have different consoles. I want to have the SCCM 2012 console in front of mine and have everything managed from there.
Everything
Also
from
the-
2012, you're saying? Any other questions? Yes,
got one
sir.
here.
Sorry.
Alexa, you talked a little or touched a little bit about the Windows Embedded Device Manager
Yes.
with respect to a thin client image that potentially would be extended right filtering. Can you explain a little bit more with respect to the server itself? Can I push, or is that a client update that's done automatic? And the question kind of underlines with respect to security. Can I securely push to my client demanded from the server to that client, as opposed to the standard updates that you usually get from the far end up?
Right. So that is actually a great question. I am not the right person to answer that. So I would recommend going to the session about Weedum. If you're unable to make it, though, again, I'm happy to take down your information and have the product manager get in touch with you directly.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question similar about device managers. Does it work with Windows CE, with 7, like 7?
So right now it does not work with CE. It's Windows Embedded Standard 7, PAWS Ready, and it will also work with PAWS Ready 7 and 2009. And XP Embedded, thank you, and XP Embedded.
Any plans to do Windows WEC 7 support for the device manager? Do you know if there's anything on the roadmap? Or
So for Windows Embedded Compact Thin clients, so at the moment there isn't anything right now that I can discuss, but that's good feedback as far as manageability. I think in the past a lot of compact customers have stayed with compact because they haven't needed to touch them. So if that's something that you feel like moving forward, that's going to be a really important story for you, it'll just be good feedback to get. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did I hear you say so it'll support Windows XP Embedded,
Yes.
the management solution?
Yes.
What about image creation and that sort of thing? Is that something you're bound to what the vendor produces, or can you use like MDT or the inbuilt functionality? I mean, like how do you manage images?
Yeah, I think that's going to be covered in the session tomorrow for Device Manager.
But
Yeah.
the images can be managed and deployed using either.
Well,
is that the tool? I mean, are you going to have to use the Windows Embedded Device Manager or baked into SCCM
I mean,
like
as
OSD? Or
So building an image from an OEM perspective doesn't change. For management, this is a management solution.
Right.
So if you're talking about updates and things like that,
I'm saying deployment, like if rather
Right.
than take the thing out of the box the way it is. I mean, if you already have an image that has all the stuff you need on it, most vendors you're stuck with whatever their proprietary model is. And
right?
does this accomplish? Because when you had imaging, obviously you're talking about deploying an OS image, which is its own breakout. But
Yeah,
this
I
session
definitely.
was labeled, from start to finish. So
Yeah, no, you're
That's
right.
kind of why I'm asking.
No, you're right. My goal here was to kind of give the information upfront about what we offer, but as far as the details for Weedum, I really recommend going to that session tomorrow because they'll break down into all of that information, and it seems like you are very knowledgeable about that aspect of things, so I think that you'd probably find it really helpful to.
Yeah, I may
get the-
I may have to look down. I don't know that I had that. I had one other question too about the integration with SCCM. Is this a completely separate product, or does it bolt onto SCCM and your SCCM infrastructure drives it?
So it's an additional piece for client and server, but it works with Config Manager 07.
So do you need to build new servers to support it, or does it kind of?
No, there are
integrate
no
with-
new servers.
So it integrates with your SCCM infrastructure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Mine's kind of unique, probably to everybody's houses here, I think.
Okay.
I'm trying to solve a request for a customer to run Windows Embedded on USB so they can go portable.
Yeah.
And something similar to Ironclad and some of those other manufacturers out there, vendors that are supporting that. Is this product, it seems more attractive, especially because of the right filters and
Right.
the keyboard filter. Well, not so much keyboard, but the right filters. And you can only write so many times to a USB device, so obviously there's some challenges there as
Right.
well as lockdown challenges. So any comments about that?
I mean, are you asking me, can this be on a USB stick?
Yes.
So the general
well,
answer.
I know it can.
I guess your question is, do we allow it?
Yeah. Do you support that?
So we don't support the full image on USB. There are circumstances where you need to have, if there's an update or something like that, that can be supported. But that's generally a case-by-case basis. So my general answer is we don't support that.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. That's fine.
No,
Thanks.
but thank you for asking.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we do support SD card boot. Thank you. Good point. Yeah.
What's the difference between the SD and the?
Well, the SD card has to be in the device. It cannot be removable. So that's exactly. It's internal. Yeah. But you're welcome.
If you have software assurance with Microsoft,
Yes.
And you're using a third-party VDI, is there any licensing hit that you take? Say you buy a Weiss thin client, is there any additional costs that need to be paid to Microsoft for running a VDI solution?
So you technically cannot get software assurance on a thin client. Software assurance is. Do you want to answer? Right. So it's a separate license, but I'll let.
Windows embedded or otherwise don't qualify for software assurance. Only Windows PCs do. But we have a license called Windows Virtual Desktop Access, or VDA, that you need for the thin client.
So it is a separate license for thin clients.
So-
Thin clients aren't under SA.
Okay, so if you buy, say, a thin client from Weiss or HP that's got Windows 7 embedded on it,
There is a VDA license.
You need to buy the VDA. If you're accessing VDI, if you're accessing Windows 7 or any Windows desktop in the data center, you need a VDA license for it.
you need a VDA license.
That's
Okay.
the license for Windows in the data center.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much for coming.